Welcome to all of you to the Williams Institute lectures. These lectures are in honor of the late Dr. Ronald L. Williams, who was a professor of theology here from 1971 until his death in 1981. The Institute has featured speakers from many backgrounds, including theologians, ethicists, poets, biblical scholars, historians, and Christian educators, and I would say interdisciplinary scholars, which you will find Dr. Watkins to be. I want to introduce him to you more formally, but before I do, I want to tell you, you know how on Facebook your memories come up? And 2 days ago, maybe 2 or 3 days ago, a memory popped up with a picture of me and Dr. Watkins together from 2014, was it 2014? So 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when I was in Atlanta for something, and I let him talk me into joining him on a TV show. And I see this picture with my feet hanging like Edith Ann in a chair, because of course I'm too short for every chair. But there's this picture of us floating around doing TV together. So I thought, oh, wow, how timely that was. That came up just then. Dr. Ralph Basui Watkins is the Peachtree Professor of Evangelism and Church Growth at Columbia Theological Seminary in Decatur, Georgia, and he's going to deliver these lectures for you. What I want you to know is he really is a scholar with a camera. I've already told him to quit taking pictures of me. He holds a PhD in sociology from the University of Pittsburgh, a doctor of ministry from Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, a Master of Fine Arts from Savannah College of Arts Design, and an MA in religion from the University of Dubuque Theological Seminary. He is the author of 6 books. It actually still remains my favorite, maybe because I haven't read all of them, but I do like his book, Hip Hop Redemption, Finding God in the Rhythm and the Rhyme. And it's really a good book on thinking about how we relate to people that we don't typically relate to and how to get at that. And one of my most favorite things, so I was on the television show Religion Round Table, which he has produced, executive producer and host of that show for the Atlanta Interfaith Broadcasting Network. I can read and talk. But my favorite thing that he's doing right now, he's doing with the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, or he just did with the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, where he did a documentary called Seeing the Future of the African Church in the Rainbow, a year in the life of Real Inspiration Ministries, which is a church in Atlanta begun by same gender-loving woman who is now a bishop for the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. And he was so impressed that he became a member of the church that he and his wife joined. And watching him interact with the Fellowship of Affirming Ministry, where I serve as a faith leader, has just been wonderful to see. He can talk about what it means to be a cishet man in that arena, but it's been wonderful. He is creative. He is insightful and fun. He will make you laugh while he makes you think. And that's what I would offer to you. If you want to find more about him, he's at drralphbasuiwatkins.org, which will let you see more of his art and artistic work, both his documentaries and his photography. Would you help me welcome my colleague and friend, Dr. Watkins.
that little stool up, say I don't need it. I don't know. I think I do need it, but it's all good. It's all good. Give Dr. Bridgman a hand. Come on, give Dr. Bridgman a hand. I don't know if I know I don't realize how much work a dean does and how great it is to have a great dean, a dean that is of Dr. Bridgman's caliber. I want to thank her personally and publicly for inviting me to be here with you these few days. So I'll talk more about my work with the Fellowship for Family Ministries on tomorrow, about my photography, my documentary work. That continues, right? That continues. But kind of the backdrop of that is going to be what we're going to talk about tonight. Imagining justice, image, imagination, and seeing the future we want to create. Seeing the future we want to create. So, any great-grandparent has to show a picture of their grandchild. And so this is my grandson, Princeton Josiah Smith, who called me the other day and said, Pop, when I grow up, I want to be a professor just like you. And so I replied, as a professor, you must read every day. And he responded, Pop, I already do that. But let me show you how Princeton connects with me almost every day.
Hi, Papa. How was your day?
Fine. How was your day?
Good.
This is a daily occurrence. And so the way that Princeton and I know each other is through this phone. Interesting thing about Princeton is he's never held the phone like this. He only knows the phone like this. And if ever I call him, I'm not on FaceTime, the first thing it says is, Pop, I can't see you. And so the question for us tonight is, how do we develop a ministry for Princeton and students and kids like Princeton who only know the world vertically and through the phone? We can diss it or we can embrace it. If we diss it, we miss him. And the reason I'm concerned about him is that the church saved me. I want the church to also save him. Let's talk about it.
My generation creates 27,905 images every single second. Our images speak for us. Are yours saying enough? It's time to be heard. I am Generation Image.
My grandson is Generation Image. My nieces and nephews are Generation Image. Are yours saying enough? 1.3 trillion photos are taken each year globally with smartphones. This translates to about 3.5 billion photos per day. We take more photos in a day than we took the last 100 years. Because when I was a kid, you had to actually buy film and go and get the film developed. I remember this, right? You had to go get the film developed, right? And I remember my first cell phone. Y'all remember your first cell phone? My first cell phone was in the car. Come on, somebody, talk to me, right? It was connected to the actual car. It didn't even come out the car. Hello, somebody? Y'all remember that, right? I thought I was the baddest pastor in the city because I had a cell with an antenna on my car. Then my next favorite cell phone, I remember the BlackBerry. Glory to God. Didn't have no camera, but boy, I could do some email on that BlackBerry. Hello? I thought when the iPhone came out, I said, that is the devil, it's not of God, I'm not buying it. I bought it, and my fingers was too fat to type on it. Y'all remember this, right? I gave that phone back and had to buy it again. Hello, somebody. Because the camera phone changed everything. It changed how we see the world. We used to see the world like this. Now we see it like this. Let's talk about it. So, this is a great story. President, you want to hear the story? I got my PhD when I was 35 years old. I'm 63 now. I got my PhD in the 1900s. in 1900. And then in my early 50s, God called me to go get an MFA in photography. Now, I'm going to tell you something about getting a degree in the arts versus the intellectual academic enterprises. it's all up here. I can write a paper, get an A in my sleep, but art is from here. And so this experience at the Savannah College of Art and Design, getting the terminal degree in photography in 2016, wore me out. I almost quit every day. And this woman, my wife of 4 years, I would come home and she would say, "What's today? Scared glad or scared mad?" Right? But I went to SCAD because I believe that images communicate. And I believe that if I was going to be successful and help the church be successful, we had to learn how images work and how to create great images. Listen to this. Every successful social justice or conservative movement that's been successful, it always mastered the communication mediums of that age. Hello? Hello? Frederick Douglass matters the written word, the spoken word, and photography. Are you with me, right? So I'm going to talk more about it, because here's the issue. I think many times our conservative siblings have always mastered it. And we've been reluctant to embrace it, and it's hurt our movement. Y'all still with me? I'm teaching already. Y'all know I'm teaching already. I'm teaching already. I'm doing the best I can. Here we go. 1862. Frederick Douglass, the most photographed human of his time. Photography is invented in 1839. In the midst of the Civil War, Frederick Douglass is talking about photography as a great equalizer. This is what he says. This may be termed the age of pictures. The sun, in his course, having turned artists, has flooded the world with pictures. And this is the book that talks about his, the Picturing Frederick Douglass, the book that really chronicles the accuracy of him being known as photographer of his time, as well as engages this lecture, The Age of Pictures, 1862. Let's keep going. This is what he says. So Frederick Douglass is beginning to imagine freedom. And I want us to think about that tonight. If I ask you to image freedom, what does it look like? See, this is the question I want us to wrestle with tonight. Can we create a world we've not imagined? Can we create a world we've not imagined? I'm living right now what I've imagined. Hello? I saw myself in Ohio before I got to Ohio. Hello? I was on your website before I saw myself right here tonight before I got here tonight. Hello, somebody? Here we go. Frederick Douglass said there's a problem. And he said the Catholics outdo the Protestants. If you look at these two examples, you see a key difference in one house of worship and the other house of worship. Well, what did Frederick Douglass say in 1862? Let's see what the prophet said. He said, with Protestants, there's little dependence upon this method of dealing with souls, talking about imagery and iconography. He says it deals more with words than paints and chisels. Nevertheless, its teachers and preachers are painters and succeed because they paint. He who gives a beautiful and perfect form to our unexpressed idea easily makes us pliant disciples. He goes on to say, those who are ever most popular preachers whose sermons are but a succession of pictures. Paint the picture. Tell the story. This is what he says. The cold and faintly logician who knits his arguments like a coat of mail lays down to empty benches. Y'all still with me? But he who enters the soul's deepest meditation and reveals the profoundest secrets of human heart to eye and ear by action and utterance will never want for an audience. So think with me. You begin to create your sermons. Do you think visually first? Or are we creating arguments? Is our work supported by the visual to amplify? Because we remember what we see. Hello? I can read a book and forgot I read the book. Anybody? Matter of fact, I teach classes. Sometimes I use the same book. I got to reread the book that I assigned, that I read before I assigned it. But there are movies that I went to years ago and still remember. I know when to cry at every scene in Casablanca. Hello, somebody? Hello. I love a good love story. Y'all still with me? Hello. I mean, I can remember every scene in The Wizard of Oz, movies that I have seen as a kid growing up. I can still remember them as a 63-year-old man. Huh? Here we go. So Frederick Douglass, who believed that somehow the image was so powerful, liberated the person in the image and the ones who saw the image. Does that make sense to you? Because prior to 1839, you had to pay someone to paint you a portrait. But post 1839, you can take your own portrait, pay for your portrait. And now, post 2007, you can and make sure you're seen that others see you. Y'all still with me? Here we go. Not only did Frederick Douglass understand the power of the image, so did Sojourner Truth. Right? When you read Darcy Grigsby's book, where it's entitled Enduring Truths, Sojourner's Shadows and Substance. Sojourner Truth, as she created these cards that she sold to support her work, she says, I sell the shadow to support the substance. She showed these cards of images of herself. And what happened was that other black women and those who supported could also see themselves in the image. And she also presented herself a certain way. Does that make sense to you? Right? So it both liberated her and those who engaged the image. And then she sold those cards to support her work. Y'all still with me? I'm doing the best I can. Y'all don't go to sleep yet. Hello? I'm trying to Here we go. Matter of fact, there is no civil rights movement without imagery. The mother of the movement is not Rosa Parks, it's Mamie Till. It's Mamie Till. Why? Because, see, matter of fact, Rosa Parks says, I couldn't get up out of that bus seat because I had the image of that boy in my mind. Because Mamie Till said, no, you're not going to bury my son. Send him back to Chicago. I want them to see what they did to my boy. And then she was so brilliant, as she lay in the casket, she took family photos. And she taped them at the top of this casket so you could see the brutality. She partnered with the photographer from Jet Magazine named David Jackson and Ernest Withers to make sure the story was told. If you don't believe me, read Lee Rayford's book, In Prison. I like to sign y'all books. Read Lee Rayford's book, In Prison in Luminous Glare. What Martin King says, and I paraphrase in his book, Why We Can't Wait. He said, what images did for the movement was, it was as if a prisoner was trying to escape from prison, and that prisoner was caught in the lights from the prison in an luminous glare. And what Martin King said, then America had to look at what it was doing. The image reflected that injustice, and they saw it. And without the images, the movement never happens. The images of Bull Connor. Y'all still with me? Yeah. They say there's a story, one photographer tells, the one time Martin King got angry. This white photographer was shooting images, and this police officer was kicking an African-American woman. And the photographer goes, this white photographer goes and takes the police officer off the horse and throws him down. And Martin King then grabs the police officer and says, that's not how you stop it. Get the picture. Y'all still with me? So, it's Mamie Till who had the courage to bring her son back and partner with David Jackson to capture those images that birthed the movement, and they were smart enough to realize that those images would sustain the movement. Questions. Why should we create images and share them? What do we want with images? What do we want from images? How can we help see and help others see justice and injustice with images? Who decides what we see, how we see, and what we don't see? Y'all still with me? Because I want you to think with me about something that somehow we have dismissed as novel or faddish or narcissistic. And what I'm arguing, it's an essential tool of liberation. You with me? It's an essential tool of liberation. And because we've underestimated, we've lost. Huh? Because our conservative and evangelical friends, they've not underestimated. They've used it successfully. Let me keep talking. I got to get to dinner. I ain't had dinner. I'm hungry. Dr. Brisson, we eating after our lecture. I said, okay, we're going to do this. Lecture will be real fast. I'm just, Mr. President, we're going to go real fast. I'm just joking. I'm just. So Alexis Boylan helps us think about visual culture. And what Frederick Douglass says, we're living in an age of pictures. Arguably, we're living in an age of visual culture. And if we don't understand how visuals work, or the age we live in, I think it then gets in the way of us being successful in making the world a more just place. Y'all still with me? Okay, here we go. What does Alexis Boylan say? She says, visual culture is not really an important feature of contemporary life. It is the most important culture we must navigate. Listen to what she says. Visual culture is never neutral and thus never without value. Visual culture is power. Tell you what you do. If you just do a YouTube search and look at the ads the Trump campaign developed, and look at the ads Biden-Harris developed, and tell me which ones are better. Not that I agree with the message, but the quality, right? What it ignited, how Trump used certain messages out of context to win an election and fed into fear. Same thing Hitler did in Germany. Hello, somebody? Using less than 1% of our siblings and made them the target to engender fear, and how well those ads were done versus Biden-Harris ads. If I ask you now, what was Harris's and Biden's slogan, we might struggle. But you should know, you know it, right? That was brilliant communication. That was then propagated in messages that subverted our freedom. Y'all still with me? So this is power. And if we don't use this power, we will lose this war. Frederick Douglass understood this power. Sojourner Truth understood this power. Rosa Parks understood this power. Ella Baker understood this power. Fannie Lou Hamer, when she testified and walked in there with that purse, y'all remember that scene? Y'all, and she sat down. She understood that power, right? And when the President Johnson popped in trying to get us off of her visual presentation, they understood that power. We must re-engage that power to create a more just world. Y'all, we in trouble. We got to fight. This is real. You want how far America can go? Look where America has been. I'm going to stop there. Where have we been? We didn't think we could be here. Who thought we'd be back with a second Trump presidency? I didn't think it, but we're here. And look what's happened in the first 100 days. How far can this thing, if we don't master this, y'all, I argue we're in trouble. Here we go. I'm trying to get to dinner. Listen to what she says. Visual culture is all about visual memories. All the images on screens, all the objects in your house, everything in everyone's house. All the images on billboards, the sides of buses and the subways. All the pictures of cities, farms, all the maps, all the cartoons, all the things you think you've seen but haven't yet. If you can see it, it was made to be seen, then it's visual. It also involves what is invisible or what's kept out of sight. Y'all still with me? Here we go. This is what she says. Visual culture is hard and messy business. And I'm sick of preachers telling what they ain't got time to do. You cannot not have time to fight right now, y'all. I thank God my ancestors didn't say we didn't have time to boycott. We didn't have time to walk. We didn't have time to run away, because I wouldn't be here today. Sitting in an endowed chair. The first African-American male endowed chair, full professor at Columbus Seminary. Some of them folks turn over in their graves. Hello, somebody? But my ancestors fought for me to sit in the seat that I'm sitting in. So I owe them. She says, look what it is. Visual culture is hard and messy business. We got to do the hard work. It always has been. Images want to tussle. This is what she says. We must think harder and smarter about tussling back. Y'all still with me? Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Now, this is my favorite author right now. Bell Hooks is a god, right? Bell Hooks and Audre Lorde are gods, right? And Rue Benjamin is an angel. Here we go. Because I wanted to think about, I love to read. I wanted to think about image and imagining a nation. You with me? Imagination. Just listen to me. So her book, Imagination Manifesto, listen to what she says. We are in an imagination battle. Y'all with me? Because sometimes it can be so severe, and when you lose hope, you can't dream. You with me? Listen. Let's walk. Let's walk with Dr. Benjamin for a second. Let's walk with Dr. Benjamin for a second. Listen to what she says. What if imagination is not only a muscle we can stretch and strengthen, or a skill we can practice and hone, Listen. She says, what if our imagination is also a sacred space where we can connect with ourselves, listen to this, our ancestors, even future generations, a place where poetic knowledge can emerge. Y'all feeling what she's pushing us to think about? Stick with me now. Listen. How do images inspire imagination that helps us see and create vision? Y'all with me? Huh? How can we imagine a nation? How does image, imagination, and seeing produce vision? Y'all still with me? Listen. Where there's no vision, where there are no images, no imagination, the people perish. Y'all still with me? I'm trying to get to dinner, so I'm gonna get y'all out here in a few more minutes. So I'm trying to get here we go. Huh? So can we imagine, can we image, can we dream about the nation we want to see? Can we close our eyes and see the nation that we want to live in? What fuels our imagination? Every time I talk to my grandson, he's always drawing pictures. And he's always using his imagination. He's 5 and has not been stolen from him yet. He takes the phone and he says, Pop, I want you to chase me. I'm like, I can't really do this, right? And so he has the phone, and we're playing games on the phone because his imagination is so vivid. He acts like I'm actually there, and I'm not really there. And I get my phone, he got his phone, here I get my phone, and I'm running around the house with him. Because his imagination has fueled my imagination. So can we imagine a nation? Y'all with me? Because I believe that God is the author of imagination. Matter of fact, the Bible says God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all you ask, think, or imagine. So we're not asking, we're not thinking, and we're not imagining. I think we're not invoking the power of God to help us create the nation that we imagine. Okay, I'm trying to get to dinner. Where my clicker at? Doc, you took my clicker. Here we go. Stay with me. Here we go. No, I didn't, I drank some coffee, though. Woo, here we go. So this book just came out. Listen to Sarah Lewis, another angel, another academic angel. Image on the front of the book from Carrie Mae Weems, one of the greatest photographers, artists of our time. But Sarah Lewis, when race changed sight in America. Listen to what she says. One of the main questions in American democracy is how to tell the story of who we are. Listen to what she says. When representational democracy, the answer has always been representational itself. Visual culture has always been a way to work through blind spots of norms and laws that did not honor the full humanity of all. That's our battle. We've always been in a battle who we define as human. And then we treat folk as less than human because they don't have citizenship in this country. Because God created them LGBTQ. Huh? And then then they said we can treat them as less human because they're black, or y'all still with me? Huh? But she said it's about how we tell the story and tell our story. And we have the tool right in our hand to tell the story. All we got to do is push that little red button and start telling the story. You don't need no expensive camera. Now, the camera I got over here that I love to play with, it's a $2,000 camera. Hello? But this is a $200 phone. It does the same thing. You don't need this, because I bet all of y'all got this. Matter of fact, you don't leave home. There you go. Here we go. Here we go. Questions. Let's have some conversation. Questions. What and how does creating images help us see? Because when I got to create an image, I got to frame it. I got to get Doc in the right light because she said I don't like pictures, but she keeps on taking no picture. And so I got to frame it. I got to get it just right. Now I see her much differently here than I do here. Are you with me? I mean, I see brilliance. I see beauty. I see elegance. I see blackness. I see dinner. I see hands behind your head. I can see my dinner right now. Hallelujah, glory to God. That you all are paying for. Thank you so very much. I'm almond milk and Cheerios. Listen to me. Okay, here we go. Here we go. What and how does creating images help us see? Can we create a future we've not imagined? See, I believe that Harriet Tubman imagined freedom. Fannie Lou Hamer imagined freedom. Ella Baker imagined freedom. Ellen Holmes Norton imagined freedom. And I'm enjoying, John Lewis stole the comment, I'm enjoying what they imagined. I'm beneficiary of their dreaming, of their thinking, of their asking. I am a product of their imagination. A black man out of PCUSA school getting paid every 2 weeks and going on sabbatical next month. Hallelujah. For a whole year to create some more good trouble. They imagined that. How do imaginations and images help us see the future? What images of justice did our ancestors see that led to the world they created? They saw what we're sitting in. I was walking around campus just looking at the little plaques on the building and when these buildings were built. October 10th, 1960, dedicated. Right after the civil rights movement, these folks were building this space for us to sit in. They were building a space for you to be the institution you are today. They had what about you? What are you imagining? What images are you creating? What are you dreaming of? What are you building? Don't let what you presently see steal your hope, your joy, your dreams, and your imagination. Because it didn't steal theirs. It didn't steal theirs. And I thank God it didn't. Because if it had stole theirs, I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here today. All right, y'all, let's talk. Let's talk. Questions, comments, responses, pushback. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you got to come to the mic so we can get it recorded on the thing. Jesus coming to you.
So you've talked a whole lot about images.
Right.
I want to talk about video.
Yes, yes.
One of the things you didn't mention is George Floyd
Yes.
blew everything up, and
Yes.
I think the reason was that video.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so when you say we're living in a time of image,
Right.
is video more important than a still picture is these days?
No. Short answer. Let me go further though. So I'll talk about this more tomorrow, right? I'm an art-based researcher who does work at the intersection of photography, documentary film, spirituality, and social justice. Now back to the murder of George Floyd. Darnella Frazier, 17-year-old sister, had the wherewithal to simply do this. She's our modern-day Mamie Till. 17 years old. She stood on the side of that street and she did this. And that's why we have the footage. Otherwise, Chauvin is not in jail. Suddenly we have the video, we still don't get in jail. So it's still moving or still, right? They're images, right? So I argue they're both equally important, right? But the thing about a still images affect us differently than moving images. Because they make you stop. Right? The moving images goes 24 frames per second. Right? It's both and not either or, right? The issue is this. This is what I said earlier. Every successful social justice movement and those contrary to that have always mastered the communication mediums of the age. You can't find one that was successful that didn't master. So we have to master that, right? And I think the phone is our key tool to be used in a very positive and constructive way. So yeah, just go ahead.
I've got a question about how AI may affect all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. About how
Yeah.
AI may affect all that and the whole idea about creating fake images that are as good as or as real as the real thing. I mean, how do we, I mean, that's an ethical question too, because you've got tools that ethical people use and unethical people use, and we can't control how unethical people choose to use those tools. So how do we fight against that? What do we do?
So great question. So we've always had tools to manipulate media. We've always had tools to manipulate media. Even at the birth of photography, we did overlays. We did all kind of things. The great photographer James Van Der Zee would do these images of death. Say when someone lost a child in death, he created an image where the child was there with the parents. Fake imagery, right? So we've always manipulated. So I think the way we do this is creating stories that are authentic, that are connected to our communities, that we share within our communities. Does that make sense to you? Right? Because I use AI like now when it comes to processing my images, and I do a lot of photography, and I have a lot of images to process, and AI can fix it for me in seconds versus hours, right? We've always used those tools, but I think we must be ethical and call out those things that aren't ethical and call out lies. And we do that by telling truth. I think truth is inherently liberating, but we have to become more effective at telling the truth through moving in still images. Does that make sense to you? That's what Mamie did. Matter of fact, they just let the woman off who was the one that was the foundation of murdering Emmett Till. Y'all know that, right? The woman that lied, who's 88, they just let her off, right? And she lied. What Mamie Till did, Mamie Till said, no, I'm going to make y'all tell, I'm going to show y'all the truth. You with me? Right? Because that was a hoax. You see what I'm saying to you? So I think we have to become truth tellers through telling stories and using imagery. Make sense? Go ahead. Uh-oh.
No, I want to go back to the question around still versus moving.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I want to go back to that George Floyd image,
Yes,
which is, what, 9 minutes and 46 seconds?
8 minutes and 47 seconds.
And 8 minutes and 47 seconds knee on, but it was also that picture circulated the world.
That's right.
And people would stare at that picture, not just the video that got resent over and over, but it's literally the arresting image that I think also had a deep impact. Literally around the world. I mean, protests broke out all around the world. I want you to speak a little bit more about what I'm calling the hopelessness that I sometimes hear among those of us who say we're Christians, that stymies imagination. How do you provoke your own imagination?
Okay, good. So I'll talk a lot about this tomorrow, but I'm going to answer the dean's question tonight because she's taking me to dinner. I think that which we create creates us. So I think the more creative I am and the more work I create, it stimulates my imagination. So I'll give you a peek at tomorrow. So I'm doing a series of images now of my LGBTQ plus siblings, and it's a single image of them. They choose an image of the rainbow flag color they want behind them. I'm looking at an exhibition of 200 images of my people of faith, siblings of faith. So I'm seeing this. So I'm taking these images. People are coming to I have a studio at Columbia Theological Seminary on campus. I have a studio on campus. They're coming to my studio taking these images. So I'm telling the story again tomorrow, but I'm answering your question. So what happens is couples coming to my studio to take their images, because I know couples and they're in relationship, right? LGBTQ plus couples, same deal, upcoming, etc. So as I'm taking these images, I had this other, so the images are then with the color of the rainbow flag behind them, single image, right? Nice portrait. But then these couples show up. I say, you know what? Let's do a couple shoot. So then I take this big old beautiful backdrop, a Valentine's backdrop, and I said, what's y'all favorite music? Luther Vandross. So I put Luther Vandross on. So we in the studio, and they tell me y'all know Luther, but I'm with Luther, right? We jamming. And I'm just clack, 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 clack. So then I said, oh, God gave me another idea. I'm now doing a series called The Look of Love. And I'm going to show images tomorrow of these beautiful images of same-gender loving couples that we don't normally get. So what happened is, as in this hopeless moment, when I'm creating work that's resonating with both the person I'm creating with, the world, and with me, it gives me, it fuels my imagination to do new and different kinds of work, and that gives me hope. Because you know what, and I'll talk to someone tomorrow, I love when people see their image, how they respond. Well, it's really you, right? That gives me hope that you see that I love you, and that you love you, and that God loves you, and that you were created in the image of God, and somehow images show you that you are created in the image of God. And it blows my mind in the studio. And I leave the studio like, I'll be so excited. You know, I don't care what the news say, because something just happened that was life affirming and life giving. And I think creativity does that. You with me? And the more I take an image and create a shot and build a relationship, because I argue that my work is about love. Huh? Right? It's about love, right? And photography literally means writing with light. Jesus says that Jesus was the light of the world. And when the light is right, it just does something. So for me, it's those moments that give me hope. And the people respond, right? And I'll talk about this more tomorrow, like with the work that I have done. I am surprised of all the books I've written, because a lot of folk buy my books, but they don't read them. I'm gonna tell you how I know. I go to churches to print this. I got your book. Can you sign it? You ain't turned one doggone page in this book. This book look, ain't no highlights, ain't no notes, ain't no tabs. I'm signing a book you ain't even read. It doesn't matter. But I'm amazed. People respond to my images. They like on Facebook. They share on Instagram. They watch the videos, right? And that gives me joy. When someone says, so I know it's homophobic, and they see a same couple, and they say, they are beautiful. I'm getting them to think. They're now beginning to see. That gives me hope. When my mama liked my stuff, and she 85. I don't know what you're doing, baby. You sure you still saying, yeah, mama? And she said she gets it, right? Yeah. And living out my own values of what I believe, and getting critiqued but also affirmed. Does that make sense to you? But I really think that's why I think we if you cannot call yourself a creative if you're not creating work. You're just lying. Because the creative, by definition, creates. And that which you create creates you, and I think that which you create also liberates you. So I think there's truth in the creative process. I think my pictures and my videos are truth tellers. And the truth sets me free. So I'm free. In the hell we in, I'm still free. Because when I go back home on April the 1st, I have this beautiful couple coming in to take images of. Just got married. Beautiful couple. And we're going to have fun. We're going to put some music on. We're going to jam. We're going to make some images. And we're going to post them. And usually it's amazing what happens there, right? You with me? Other questions?
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, so my question surrounds the verse in the Bible, my people perish for a lack of knowledge.
Right.
And then you compare the Biden political campaigns
Right.
versus Trump, you know?
Right.
And in many parts of the world, my own included, it is the least ethical political party tends
Right.
to win on the basis of presenting the most compelling
That's right.
imagery
Right.
and stories, you know?
Right.
And so how do we then step into this creativity and maintain honesty?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
my question.
So my favorite living creative right now, one of many, I shouldn't say one, it's one of my, Ava DuVernay. You know, Ava DuVernay did the movie the movie Origins, which is based on Isabel Wilkerson's book Cast. She did the documentary 13th. She did the movie Selma. She did the series How They See Us. Great movie maker, right? Among other stories. And Ava DuVernay says, we live in a permission culture, but you don't need permission. So I think how we do it is we just do this. right? So this, I'm gonna show you how we do it. What y'all did with my phone? I'm looking for my phone. Yeah, I got another phone somewhere. Here we go. So this is what we do. This is what we do. We go to our phones, and we go to this thing called the camera. With me? And then what we do is, come on, stand up, stand up. This is what's your name?
Shema.
Shema? This is my new friend, Shema. Where you from?
I'm from Antigua.
She's from Antigua, and we gonna go to dinner together because I'm hungry. And this is Dr. Bridgman. And Dr. Bridgman ain't fed me. Okay. So all I do is, I just get my phone and I just start telling stories. I just hit the record button. That's all I got to do. We don't need permission to ever do what they says. You can make a film with this, right? Just start posting what you feel led to post. And I know the issue with algorithm and all the, I get all that. I'm not dismissing that. But I think that we have to tell those. See, I think truth actually liberates, but are we telling the truth? So we see a lie, but are we challenging the lie? Like the lie the Trump administration told about Vice President Harris and the support for our trans siblings. We never challenged that lie, right? How Trump in that campaign characterized our siblings who are not yet citizens. We didn't challenge that lie. All we had to do was tell the truth. Tell the truth. And if we tell, see, I'm naive enough to believe that these folk believe that we told the truth, something would happen. And something happened. I believe that she believed by truth telling and being true to her call that something, and something actually happened. Are you following me? Huh? You know, there's no Barack Obama without a Fannie Lou Hamer. There's no 2008 without 1964. The Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party was the one that changed the Democratic Party. And that's the work of Fannie Lou Hamer. But she told her story. She sat down with her purse. Y'all know the clip? And she just told her story. Just tell your story. That's all I'm doing. I'm just telling my story. And believing God that my story will touch somebody to listen and change. That's all I can believe. And it's happening. I see folk watching documentaries. I see folk, and I got a book coming out on the same issue of my book. Top of this tomorrow, my book talks about how did a cisgender, heterosexual, African-American Baptist preacher get to where I'm at. Because folk, how did you get here? So I tell the story, but I also confess and lament and grieve of the harm that I caused because of the privilege that I enjoyed. You with me? Huh? But telling that truth is going to liberate another brother or sister who say, because I got to talk to folk like me. So I'm just telling my story. The book, I'm just telling my story. Book comes out in the fall. Y'all buy it, and you buy it. God knows, please read it. Right? But I think we need to pick these phones up and use them. Ava DuVernay says, you don't need permission. Right? I mean, when I went back to school to get MFA, I said, I got to become a better storyteller. And I didn't ask for permission. I just told Columbia what I was going to do. They was going to fire me. That was cool, too. I just sue y'all, but it's all good. But I'm going to become a better storyteller because I think that's the form of liberation what God's called me to be and do. Other questions?
Really don't want to keep you from your dinner.
That's all.
We're doing that.
If I miss a few meals, it won't hurt me. I'm telling you.
First of all, I want to say thanks for the run around with your grandkids because my grandkids do that to me all the time, and I can't stand it. So now I've got a different vision of we're doing it together.
That's right.
So I want to talk about your grandson for a minute,
Sure.
about Princeton.
Sure.
Okay, so, and I'm thinking about what stokes imagination.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about him
Yes.
reading a book
Yes.
or looking at an image. And I don't think there's a dichotomy there that I want to separate,
Right.
but I do think when I'm hungering for a world that I can't see,
Yeah.
I need literature
Yeah.
to help me get there beyond the image
Yeah.
or in addition to the image.
Yeah.
So I'm just
That's
thinking
good.
about that for
Yeah.
Preston
Yeah.
or Princeton and for my grandkids.
So-
what's going to help them see it?
Yeah. So I think it's both and. I'm not an either or guy. I'm a both and guy, right? And I told you what Princeton said about being a professor, right? Y'all remember what I said? Princeton said, Pop, I want to be a professor. I said, well, Princeton, I read every day. And Princeton said, Pop, I already do that. I think it's both and. I think the problem we have sometimes, specifically in the academy, we lean so much on the written word, it stymies imagination. We study so many dead people that I think it sucks the life out of us because we hang around with a bunch of dead folk. That's necrophilia, right? And so, right. So for me, back to your point, I think it's both and. So for example, give you an example. In one of the class I taught, we read Isabel Wilkerson's book Cast, and we watched Origins. We read Michelle Alexander, The New Jim Crow, and we watched the documentary The 13th. Right? And then we read Nicole Fleetwood's book, Art in the Age of Mass Incarceration. And then we created art. And we wrote papers. You with me? I heard the students say, I ain't taking that class. Right? So, but I think that both and stimulate. So see the reason I'm a transmedia scholar. I do photography, documentary, and I write. Because writing helps me put my mind in order. Right? Writing kind of gives me a sequence where art kind of liberates me in different kinds of ways. That's how I got to the Look of Love images, right? I couldn't have got there by writing. I got there by being in the studio taking images and co-creating with my siblings. Then I saw these beautiful couples. Oh, let's do this. And those are the images that are resonating with folk. You with me? Makes sense. So I think it's both and. So with Princeton, you know, there's a book by Cal Newport called Deep Focus. And he argues that in many ways, some of the things that we're engaging with technology is it's impeding our ability to do the deep work, to concentrate, right? So I think it's both and. But I was talking to Richard, and we were talking about that when I'm editing images or when I'm shooting, I'm lost. I'm so focused, but I've nurtured that gift through reading and writing and quiet. Make sense to you? So I think it's both and, but I think because it's like I hate this when you get this, 6 months before the class starts and they're telling you what books. I had to fight. Now we have a great librarian in our school. She's great. They're great. Their team is great. Because we've leaned into those other resources, and they are, I think, equally important. So my class is a multimedia list, not a book list. Right? But books are there, right? But we have it's back to the Douglas quote, right? We have so prioritized and given ourselves over to the written word, we've missed other ways to communicate, right? Because we're judged on the paper we write, not the stories we tell. And we have people in office now who can't write a paper, but told good stories and lied, but couldn't write their way out of a wet paper bag. You with me? But they're in power. They are in power because, as Alexis Bowen says, visual culture is power. And they understood that, and we missed it. But we can write great papers. We can quote Bonhoeffer and Tillich and all these other folk, right? But can we tell the story? You with me? Because stories transform us. Doc.
I'm going to hold what I was going to say till we go to dinner.
Oh, no, come on, no. Because I might not get dinner. Go ask your question.
You might not get dinner? You're working on it? No, I wanted you to say more, particularly around the challenge we have of bridging ancient history with living history. Because I heard the historians back there when you said we study dead people.
Right.
But I have figured a way to, for me, I'm thinking about when I taught women in the biblical world, how alive that was because of the resources I found to tell the story.
Right.
But can you talk about, because one of your, I can't remember who said it was, images about our ancestors, our present, and our future.
Yeah.
Like, how do you mine the images in such a way that it holds this notion that we are still connected to a history?
Yeah. That's good. So, okay, so.
I'm trying to help you with that next book.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it. Well, I'm working on 3 books right now at the same time.
I know.
I got 3 books. No, I know.
He said he's working on 3 books right now.
Yeah, right.
At the same time.
Yeah, and one of the books is called Word Made Image. It's me and Old Testament scholar looking at how we look at biblical interpretation through images. Anyway, let me answer this question. I think it's both and, not either or. I think the fault that I'm pointing to is us privileging an ancient dead world versus a living world. And in my 63 years of living, over 30 years in the academy, we've privileged dead folk, and we've lived in a world that does not exist. I even argue we have prepared church leaders for churches that don't exist anymore. Right? And so my point is, so this is how I would answer it. How do we balance that? Because I'm arguing, like, my work is connected to 1839, 1861, right? I argue that Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth are really my mother and my father, right? That's a long time ago, right? So I really think in photography was 1839. So I really feel that's why I'm connected to. I really feel that our struggles are connected to those past struggles. So I think it's both and, but I think sometimes, unfortunately, we privilege that to the extent where the present and the future suffer. So I think what happens many times, we really don't move into the future. See, all of my work, to be honest about it, has been about the future church. So I'm biased. I confess my bias, right? So my dissertation was entitled The Institutionalization of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. What I really was saying was, why is the AME church dying? That was in 1997. I wrote that dissertation, right? And published all those articles in the AME Review. I didn't do a book because I wanted the AME church to read them. They ain't read them, right? Because they're still dying. When I wrote about hip-hop, I said, why is hip-hop the only thing that black folk has birthed that is not into the black church? Still ain't in the black church. We told our kids we don't value what you produce. R&B made it in the black church. We call it gospel. Blues made it into the black church, right? But hip-hop still ain't in the church. Hello, somebody? And now we're trying to get young folk back. That's why I wrote on hip-hop stuff. Now I'm writing, you cannot diss our LGBTQ plus siblings. That's the future of the church. They still ain't listening. So my bias is future because we live in the past. The historic Bethel. That's a euphemism for the dead. Come on, y'all know I'm telling the truth. I pastored one of them churches. We're talking about what we've done, not what we're doing. And I think because we get lost, y'all. So that's my bias, and I want those who disagree with me to push back to help balance me, because I'm at the other end of the continuum. With me? Because I'm going to tell y'all something, and I say this in the book I wrote. I had pretty much gave up on the church until I started my work with the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, and I saw God again. I'll tell you this tomorrow. When I was doing this documentary on my last sabbatical, I'm sitting filming, and I'm crying all the time I'm filming. Because I met God again in the future of what I think God's church is. And I think we are so busy doing this, we can't do this. And we got to do this and this. Look back and look forward, right? But we can be obsessed with our past and not our future. Does that make sense to you? So I am biased, and I confess my bias, and I want these stories to push back so we can have some balance. So I think the reason we're dying is we're out of balance. And I think what's happening in the church right now is going to be a sign we're going to look back. My grandson say, oh, that's where they went wrong. Because we're trying to hold on to what we were versus what God's calling us to be. Does that make sense to you? And that's the fight we're really in. Because I think we're missing where God is. That's what I think. And I think when I die and go, they're going to say, Ralph was actually right. And Princeton who owns the copyright of all my stuff, going to republish his granddaddy and make some money. Because I ain't made no money off these books. Any other questions? Come on, give me at least one more. Thank you. I love your shirt.
Thank you. It's not a question, more so a comment going back to the previous question and answer about doing the both and of the visual and the written work. I was just having a conversation with a fellow student about the struggle of writing a paper to prove your learning when you can tell a story in a different way. And one of our former professors here, she was amazing at giving us options of learning artifacts. It could be an art thing, it could be a sermon, it could be a poem, video, etc., and giving us the choice to choose the best way to show what we have been learning and to tell our stories. So And I would love to take that class that you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah.
Because as a learner, that I need variety in what I'm consuming too. So I just wanted to affirm that.
And I want to affirm what you said, because that's what I've tried to, which sometimes what faculty argue the difficulty of creating rubrics. I create rubrics, but I'm not concerned about rubrics. What I'm more concerned about is your ability to express the best way you can tell your story through your learning, right? And so I do that a lot in my class, right? I'll say to students, and students sometimes struggle because sometimes it doesn't have enough structure to it. Because used to structure, right? You know, paper, 1.5-inch margins, double space, you know, Terabia and all that kind of stuff, right? And I say, what do you want to create? So your first assignment is, what do you want to create? And not paper. It'll be whatever you want to create. And then we'll work out how we're going to grade that. And I first ask students, what do you think you deserve? I really don't want, I want to talk about the work versus grading the work. So I think grading is overrated. That's just me. I think grading, but I think if I could talk to you about, because I felt when I was in art school, it's more about what I was creating than what grade I was getting. And I got all A's, except 1B, but that's okay. But what I found was something about what was in me that I wanted to get out of me. And that was liberating, right? And so what I feel as an educator, as a co-creator with those who I get to study with in classes, what do you want to create? Because I argue that what you create creates you. And what I also argue that there are papers that I wrote that I couldn't write again if you paid me. Come on now. Now I got 3 terms, I got A's all my life. Class I took, I don't remember because of the stuff that we did. Papers I wrote this at the bottom of whatever pile of crap, you know what I mean? Like, now I'm old, so the library wants to collect all my papers. And I was looking at this, I don't even remember this stuff. But things that I created, I remember. The art that I can remember when I went to Key and made my first documentary, or when I had my TV show, or the documentary I made. I can remember even shooting, I can remember that. I can't remember a lot of those papers. I don't even remember my dissertation. Matter of fact, I've written books and people ask me about the book, like, I wrote that out, read it to me again. Yeah, and I actually wrote it. I don't remember even writing it, right? So I think that's what we have to, I really think, unfortunately, our education privileges a certain kind of student, a certain kind of thinking, and it's very unfair. And that's what steals us. So back to your question, my colleague, about us who share grandkids. That's the fight that Princeton does not lose. Because they tell us to stop playing. See, right now, Princeton thinks he is the greatest artist in the world. I mean, he makes these things. I have more stuff he sent me. I mean, it's on my wall at my house. He lives in Maryland. His mama and his dad mailed me stuff to put on my wall. It's on my, and he thinks it's great. But then people start telling you, color in the lines. Y'all remember diagramming sentences? That was straight from hell. Do y'all remember that? That is of the damn devil. Oh, I shouldn't cut him. That just diagramming sentences. You had to construct logical orbits out of topics, and then all that joy got taken out of you. I remember going to chorus in school and writing poems and painting, and we could dress up as, you know, it was such a wonderful time. We need that neoteny and play again in education, because it's boring. Y'all, I don't know what y'all, I've been like, God dang, yeah, this is, I need to beat you what you just did me for 3 hours. You know what I'm saying? My seminary days was tough, y'all. I was in the days when the people lectured the whole time. They come in there with, can I hold your notebook? This time my professor would come to class, they would be like yellow pieces of paper, like this. And the professor would stand up here. Do y'all remember this? And they would do this the whole time. And Tillich, when he said, and I'm like, well, God. And I would be sitting there, you'd be feverish. We didn't have no computer. When I went to school, we didn't have no computers and no tape recorders. You'd be them hold your ink pen. You'd be like this whole time. Is it gonna be on the test, right? And then you get a test and you be in the test, you be all nervous, you be praying, God, in the name of Jesus, give me the spirit of remembrance right now. I bind up remembrance. And you be so nervous, right? And they come and give you paper again. And they come back and we had this, you all didn't do it. And they start handing paper, you'd be like scared, like, oh God. And I said, I was not gonna be that person. I wasn't going to create that anxiety and hell. I wasn't going to do that in my career. I ain't did that in my career. We're going to have fun. We're going to learn. We're going to have fun. You're going to create stuff that creates you. Because I argue I'm not creating classes. I'm creating experiences that transform you. And you're talking about the experience you had, not the book you read or the film you watch, right? Something happened. And when that happens, that's a good class. Forget any evaluate. That's a good, something has happened. We had an experience together that's transformed us because of the relationship we've had in that time together. See what I'm saying to you? And I think that made me rethink my whole pedagogy. Because if I went through, get all them A's, I would not put anybody through that torture chamber again. To me, that was torture. You with me? Anyway, so I agree. And I pray to God that when you become a professor, in the name of Jesus, when you become a professor, I'm prophesying right now, that you hold on, don't lose it. So Princeton encourages me as he speaks in Spanish and English, and he draws his pictures and he reads his books, and I chase him around on the phone. That brings me life too. Because I want to be like Princeton. I want to play like Princeton. You know what I mean? Because I want to be, he says he want to be like Pop. I say, I want to be like you. His imagination. I said, I want to be like you. He told me, he said, Pop, I'm going to come live with you this summer, but if you trick me, make me go to school, when it's not a school day, I'm going to make you move out of Gaga's house. I'm like, how you imagine you got all this power, right? He's taking over, but that's how he imagined it was. He was come to my house, he's going to and be in charge, and it wasn't my house, it was Gaga's house. And he's going to put me out of my house that I'm paying at least half of the mortgage on, you know what I'm saying? But that was his imagination. And he said, he don't like the bed. He comes to our house sleep because the sheets are cold and Gaga's sheets are warm, so I can sleep in his bed because he can sleep with Gaga. I'm like, well, how can you imagine he don't realize he ain't got that power. But he really does because Gaga going, you know what I'm saying, right? But listen, this is what I'm saying. I'm still very serious. He thinks he has power. And he actually does. And y'all know what? So do we. We have power, y'all. We got to use it. It's not a time for hopelessness. It's a time for hope. It's a time for dreams, imaginations, and creativity. That's what our ancestors did. And we are beneficiaries of it. Now it's our turn. It's our time. And Princeton and your grandkids and us and our kids and our nieces and our nephews and our kids' friends, they're counting on us. Princeton's counting on this Pop to do his job. And I want Princeton to live in a world better than when I lived in. I owe Princeton. And because I love him so much, I'll do the work. Even when I'm hungry. And I had no dinner. I'm going to still come and lecture as hard as I can and have a conversation because we can change the world. Our ancestors did, and we can. It's our time. Well, that's my time. Time to go get some groceries!